Good afternoon, everybody. Shavua Tov, and welcome to a new week of Israel Briefs, proudly brought to you by Lay of the Land. I'm Rolene Marks, bringing you the top stories from Israel and the surrounds every Monday to Thursday. You may be viewing this on Facebook or on YouTube on our channel at the Israel Brief, and all you have to do is click on the red subscribe button and you will be notified every time we post a new brief. But let's get into the top stories, and no, we will not be discussing controversial interviews taking place in California, but we will be discussing the hot headlines, starting with the most important headline, and that is it's International Women's Day. Happy Women's Day to all the women around the world, and what a day it is to celebrate how far we've come, what we've overcome over the centuries, the challenges, the suffragettes, the gender parity, and discuss some of the achievements that Israeli women have achieved in 70-odd few years. Who can forget that we were one of the first countries in the world to have a female prime minister, the formidable Golda Meir, and women have continued to play an important role in all aspects of Israeli society, including in the army, in the economy, in the arts and sciences. Our very own Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot, model Bar Raffaeli, in sports, in all kinds of sports, from gymnastics to tennis to various others, to the world of politics, where women have commanded top portfolios, including Speaker of Knesset, head of the Bank of Governors, head of the Department of Justice, and head of the Supreme Court. Yes, women certainly have made their mark in the sciences as well. We have Nobel laureate Ida Yonat, who received her Nobel Prize for advances in science. In the NGO field, where women and women's organizations continue to have a voice in important arenas such as the United Nations. The Women's International Zionist Organization has representation there as well on all major Jewish international bodies, where they also hold positions of power. And while we do still have a ways to go to improve, Israeli women have the freedom to be vocal, unlike many of their sisters around the neighborhood. We don't have to need permission to own property. We have the right to vote, where many women still don't have the right to vote. We have the freedom of speech, the freedom of expression, which we use quite effectively in the fight to decrease the pay gaps. We fight for gender parity. We fight for more representation in the Knesset. We are represented in the Knesset. We fight for better rights for each other and for our children and for our sisters around the neighborhood, our neighborhood of the Middle East. And also very important, and one of the most important challenges that we face today, is gender-based violence, especially at a time of a global pandemic when women have been in lockdown or in close quarters with their abusers. We have been using our voices effectively in Israel to lobby for them, and also for the right to egalitarian prayer, whether or not it's your choice. The one thing that we do respect is the right of our sisters to make those decisions for ourselves. I could go on, but I know we're very limited with time. But happy Women's Day. It's a day to really take a step back and look at the achievements of women over the centuries, as we've had to overcome insurmountable odds fighting for the basic human rights, from being allowed to vote, women's suffrage, to the right to make decisions that govern our bodies. So to all the warriors and the goddesses and everybody in between out there, happy Women's Day. And we move from a Women's Day to Iraq, where the Pope Francis has paid a historical visit to the country. And en route there, he flew over Israeli airspace, which was quite historical, and sent President Rivlin a message of coexistence and a message of peace that was really quite moving. But very interestingly, he was in the birthplace of Abraham. Abraham is the father of the three Abrahamic religions, and in quite what I would imagine could have been a very awkward moment, asked a top-level Shiite cleric where the Jewish community is, and reiterated and stressed the importance of talking about the history of Jews in Iraq and in the region. Many people don't realize that with the birth of the State of Israel, Jews in Arab countries were forced out, and many were persecuted and many were annihilated. It's a story that isn't told perhaps as often as it should be. But the pontiff gathered with religious leaders in a message of coexistence and spoke about how there should be peace within the religions, and left his message being salam and peace. But a very, very historical moment for the region indeed. And our last story takes us back to the global pandemic, but this time we have good news. It has just been announced that 5 million Israelis have received the coronavirus vaccine, and the Prime Minister estimates by next month at least all of Israel's adults will have been inoculated. That's quite a statement. And last week he made the very, very strong statement that he believes that coronavirus is a thing of the past in Israel. However, not everybody's convinced. Our health officials have warned that there still are other variants that could be threatening in the country. And the man they call the coronavirus czar, and you all know how much I hate that word czar, he has said that it's not necessary to wear a mask outside, but really cautions against not wearing one. So where do we stand currently? We still have to wear masks. But yesterday, very happy Israelis, because we can now engage in our favorite pastime, which is doing business over a cup of coffee. And restaurants, cafes, event halls, and culture was opened to people who have been vaccinated. So slowly but surely we're getting the economy open, and hopefully soon we'll be able to make important announcements about travel to the country. So those are the top stories making headlines, but don't forget you can check out our content online at www.layoftheland.online. Also on Facebook, right here at Lottle Site. If you haven't already, please give us a like or a follow, share our content, subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Israel Brief, and interact with us on Twitter at layoftheland5. So with today's edition of The Israel Brief, I'm Rolene Marks. I'm going to say it again. Happy Women's Day, and we'll meet again tomorrow.